Good morning. That's like it, actually. There's something, I'm coming here for the second time. And I think I just posted yesterday, actually. I generally believe that in India, most probably entrepreneurship would have started from Coimbatore. So round of applause to all of you guys. You guys are the pioneers. Okay, I think there was a nice harmony got created by, Guru. Everything went well and all that, and I'm about to disrupt that harmony, actually. So I really apologize in advance, actually. Okay, I'm going to take you through a few slides, and it's going to make you anxious, actually. But what's important is that you listen to it, you get ready for it, and then go back and do something about it. I'm going to share those things with you. I'll have to look back again and again, actually, because the slides are not appearing here. So, I'm not going to waste time introducing who I am, what I do, actually. I think 50-60% of the crowd looks familiar. I've been here, I've spoken to you about a few things. But this is new to the Coimbatore, actually. In fact, I was in Pune yesterday. We're collaborating with Microsoft, actually, and they are working on a campaign called Highway to 100 Unicorns. So they're going to 10 states and collaborating with state government, tier 2 cities, inviting startups who are solving some real problems, and then picking up 10 startups from each state, actually. And their idea is to build in next 3 to 4 another 100 unicorn out of that, actually. I rattle out a lot of new words, actually. Unicorn. How many of you know what is unicorn is? Actually? Oh boy. Okay, let me just get you ready, those who don't know. How many of you understand what 7,000 crore turnover or valuation means? Yeah? That's 1 billion. If your company gets evaluated at 1 billion and someone says, take 100 million to grow your company, you are a unicorn. And they're in the process of building 100. Okay? Now, the reason I say this, how many of you are familiar with ET 500, BSC 500? So if you look at it, you're not going to find too many unicorns there, actually. Those are the real unicorns because someone is trading that, they're working on this, actually. But here, a bunch of investors are looking at a startup and say, look, your valuation should be $1 billion, here is a check of $100 million. Actually. When that happens, you know what can happen, right? They can unleash a lot of things if they happen to compete with you. Towards you, towards the market, and to compete with you fair and square. I'm not saying that they're going to not compete with you. How many of you on that parameter now understand what a decacorn means? It's 10 times of unicorn. Actually. Essentially, it's 10, someone has done a valuation of $10 billion. Actually. So I want you to remember unicorn, I want you to remember decacorn, actually. Because these are the terms, they were not, we didn't hear about it even 4 or 5 years back, actually. Something began to change in next 4 or 5 years, and that's the journey I want to take you through. Immediately after that, I know most of you come from either a garment industry or an automobile industry. I've got 2 great human beings here. I'm going to be chatting with them, and we're going to discuss some real case studies to share it with you, what's happening. Because a lot of time I heard people said, oh, it's a tech industry, it doesn't impact us. Actually. I want to assure you one thing, is the way world is shaping, to our eyes, right? And this is what we're talking about, actually. What looks like an anomaly, it's something, a normal standard, actually. So let me just take you through this journey, actually. Are you ready for this, guys? Yes. Okay. Are you ready for this? Yes. That's like it. Okay. Bit about us. We work with some of these large clients, actually. So we work with Visa, Verizon, FirstSource. We just signed RBS. Have you heard of the Royal Bank of Scotland? We've also signed Standard Life globally. And these people are entrusting us with one thing. They're saying that our future looks uncertain. Please work with us and tell us what are the things we need to do so that we can source this digital innovation and work with them. Actually. Now, stay rooted, because as you look at these things, you may feel that it may not impact you. I'm going to give you some real life example that how it's impacting us in our normal life and in future, actually. And I'm going to connect the dots, actually, because I hear these conversations every day, actually, and it's beginning to grow. And I think that whole being of, I started this company. By background, this is my second venture. I started a first one way back in 2000, raised $3 million. It's currently one of the largest security companies called Islantis Technologies. This one I started, I left a company called Gartner, actually. I ran that company for 10 years. It's the world's largest insights and intelligence advisory company based out of Stanford. They're part of S&P 500 company. And I felt there is a need to track these disruptive innovations that's coming in and your way, and how it can impact the large organization, actually. Just that, typically humans used to do it. We used artificial intelligence to track this entire thing. Converted it into the language you would like to hear, actually. So I was talking to Guru and we were chatting and he said, look, I'm not technical. I said, look, I'm fine with it. And in 10 minutes I said, tell me what you're doing, actually. And everything he talked about was digital. He talked about efficiency through digital. He talked about saving power, and we're going to talk about it through digital, actually. So in everyday life, we are using it, actually. And this is what we do day in, day out, actually. This is the slide which I talk about, actually. How many of you have heard about UBS Bank, actually? They've been in trouble of lately, and with Deutsche Bank also. So in 2008, they built a huge trading floor. Huge trading floor. In fact, they got into the Guinness Book of World Record that, this is how the trading floor was, actually. In 2016, this is what it looked like, actually. You know what happened? The algorithm got created for betting on futures, options, trading algorithm, which humans used to do, actually. It's not that the entire human got replaced. Human machine started getting together to create a productivity, efficiency. They didn't need this size trading floor. A limited floor could do that, actually. Yeah, that's what we are staring at. Now that I have your attention, let's go through more. Okay, I'm still struggling. Okay, so why do we call it disruption? And it's important for you to read this, actually. There's nothing gradual about it. Absolutely nothing gradual about it, actually. It happens in a big way. Tell me, 4 years back, how many of you were transacting on Paytm? Tell me now with your hand, raise hand, how many of you transact on Paytm? Almost 50% of the people. Yeah? Who thought selling a vegetable will happen through a digital means? Yeah? And then you said it's not going to impact us. That's what we are heading. This is a very interesting slide which talks about, I'm sure a lot of us has used Heinz ketchup. We grew up with Kodak. We also grew up with Disney's, and some of our card would have been Ford. It's interesting, actually, very, very interesting. Every time I travel, I look at the local demographic and understand, actually. And I remember, there are some shops in US very popular, Sears and all these things, actually, or Macy's, and they're continuously shutting down shops, actually. Continuously shutting down shops, because this new economy of online e-commerce is actually destroying everyone. Okay, and who thought like that, actually? Even 4 or 5 years back, when I'm in US, I'll go to Macy's, I'll buy my clothes, look through that. I don't do it today. In fact, there's no difference me sitting here buying those clothes and going to US buying those clothes, right? Who thought the world will become so small? Our economy is 3 trillion. This is what these guys attribute to, 6 trillion. They go by various names, FANG, GAFA. FANG stands for Facebook, Amazon, Alphabet, Netflix. Who thought that we'll never need a dish, a set-top box, and then watch the program? Who thought we can do it over while we're traveling? We can connect Netflix, we can do on demand, right? And this impacts us, it really impacts us. In fact, I talk about it, actually. 4 years back, Netflix had 80% of borrowed content. They will buy from Disney, they will buy from Viacom, other places, actually. Go look at Netflix and say that Netflix original, Netflix original. 80% of the contents are Netflix original. That's what you're doing that. 2 weeks back, something interesting happened. And you'll be surprised, actually. How many of you know Google? I'm sure for all search we use Google, right? How many of you have opened account at Google? How many of you have bank account at Google? Do you have bank account at Google? Oh, you use Google Pay. Google has 2 weeks back started offering retail banking in collaboration with Citibank. On that note, I must confess to you that in future, you will buy your insurance from Amazon. And that's already happening. That's coming to you. And it's important to realize that. Correct? Why it is important to act now? Because everyone we are talking to, they begin to realize that forget what's happening to large corporate, it's going to impact you. 3-4 years back, a large bank said, the future of payment cannot be through mobile. Paytm today is a decacorn. $10 billion valuation, the last round they raised from Berkshire Hathaway, actually. They have validated it. Right? There are many companies. I mean, even our top 100 companies may not be at a $10 billion valuation in India. And it's important for you to understand that something you didn't hear 4 years back, yeah, you use it in your everyday environment. So what are the forces of change, actually, and why I'm talking about these things, unicorn, decacorn, actually? There are a few things I will talk about, actually. Number one, there is a study done by a Yale professor, and they are saying that the average age of S&P 500 companies, actually, how many of you understand S&P 500 companies, actually? These are the globally top 500 companies, actually. As we have BSE 500, these are globally top 500 companies, right? So even 30, 35 years back, if you get into S&P, you'll be there for another 30, 35, 60 years, actually. They're saying in next 10 years, it's going to come down to 12 years. So in 12 years, you will be in and out of S&P. Essentially, they're saying is that in next 10 to 12 years, 50% of companies as being S&P 500 companies are going to get disrupted, actually. Now, if you happen to be their supplier, if you happen to be their OEM, you are going to get impacted, actually, if not disrupted, actually. Because somebody else will come up and they'll talk about it. How many of you know that Apple is working on its own car? How many of you know that majority of car owners are not thinking about building a car and trying to become an OEM to other car manufacturers, including some of the large Japanese car manufacturing companies? Because they don't think the future of car is that people are going to own it, it's going to be connected cars. People will travel, it'll come, like as you use Uber and Ola, actually somebody drives, it'll be connected, you will just hop into that, go from A to B, and come back, actually. It means there's not going to be any ownership around cars, actually. Correct? It means anyone who creates equipment for car manufacturing, they need to learn that. They also need to understand that the future of mobility changes, their equipment should change to address that mobility. You see, I spoke about something interesting in last 4 or 5 years, right? In 2014, there were just 40 unicorns, actually. Now that everyone knows unicorn, right? Today, there are 419, actually. 419. It created an interesting problem to all the corporates, actually. There is a term called corporate venture capitalist, actually. Essentially, you've heard about venture capitalists, right? People who give money, fund your startup, fund your business and all that. Corporate venture capitalists are the guys who were not looking for returns from startup, actually. They were looking to fund an innovation so that they can bring it inside the company because they can't innovate, actually. And co-create or create a competitive advantage or launch a new product or improve their customer experience, actually. That is what they were doing, actually. Look what has happened. In fact, if you look at that, in 2019, so in 2014, there were 140 CVC, corporate venture capitalists. In 2019 alone, 264 venture capitalists, which is corporate, actually. These guys are focused about finding innovation for their organization and work with them. And we work with majority of them. That is the question they are asking, actually. He says the future looks so uncertain that if I'm not going to be part of in next 10 years, S&P 500, what is it I need to do to compete in this new digital economy? What is it we need to do? We actually interviewed some of these business leaders because, sometimes you think it's going to impact a company. Well, guess what? Who works for that company, actually? And who's the supplier for that company? And the entire ancillary, if you look at the entire IT industry that mushroomed in Bangalore, actually, they have created tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 level of jobs. Because someone who works there needs food, the catering business came into that. They need travel, the entire travel industry mushroomed there. They need schools, the entire school industry came into being. Then they needed, people to support them, help them, the entire thing came into being, actually. It mushroomed, actually. So one industry impacted, it's going to have a cascading impact on every industry, actually. And that is what we are just beginning to talk about, actually. So what is important, which we tell everyone, is that in 4 years, the kind of a change you have seen, actually. Today, more than 70% of transaction the digital transaction happens through mobile. That was not the case 4 years back. If that is the speed it is coming at, do you need to change at that speed? If not, guess what can happen to all of us? And that's very, very important for us to understand. You know, it's interesting if you look at it, actually, these are actually, you know, the top companies. And we picked up that from Wall Street. See the companies. See the companies on the left-hand side. In fact, I was talking to one of the large oil majors. They have entry in India and all that. He says, we have lost out the China market. And they have the scouting team, sourcing team. They came back to us and said, look, our problem is that we have lost out to, you know, and the future of energy is not fossil fuel. People are already talking about moving into EV. So who's going to build the infrastructure for EV? Today, if you look at it, every 2 to 3 kilometers, you're going to see one petrol pump. You need more than that, at least 4 times of that infrastructure to ensure that you're able to support electric vehicles which are moving around, actually. Because initially, because of the battery limitation, actually, their ability to move from one place to other place is limited, actually. And they're already working on that. So, and I'll give you another example, actually. So, between Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, actually, they collaborated and said, we have more than, million employees, actually. I don't want to buy insurance from outside. Let me create my own insurance, and I'm happy to share that insurance with them. Within 3 days, and this happened last year, within 3 days, the share prices of all the insurance companies tanked, actually. You know why? Because now if you go to Amazon and buy a white product, they also give you an installment scheme. They also ask you, would you like to take insurance against that? And most likely, you're going to say yes. How many times when you need to renew your car insurance, you will talk to the guy, talk to them, and now what happens? You go to a website, you download it, make it happen. How many times for your travel insurance, you will talk to the guy, the travel insurance will come, now you go to online, just before your travel, 5 minutes back, you'll buy that. And we work with plenty of insurance company. The future of insurance is just-in-time insurance. In fact, the insurance companies we are working with, they are asking us insurance for millennial. Insurance for specific requirement. If somebody is going on a hiking holiday, they only create insurance for hiking holidays, actually. You don't need to have all the types of insurance. This is the type of customization and personalization is coming, actually. I was just sharing with them, I'm a runner, actually. My clothes requirement for running at high altitude is totally different from running closer to the coast, actually. Now, I used to run long distance races, and now I'm moving into doing triathlons and Ironman, actually. So it's a format where you do cycling, running, and swimming, correct? And currently I wear a wearable device which gives me an idea in terms of what my, the heartbeats and other things are there. They're saying that how about we embed the entire thing onto something which you're wearing, actually, and we can collect the parameter, actually. So as a textile business, are you ready for that? Actually? Are you thinking about that? I'm glad somebody said yes. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. Here are the billion-dollar companies, actually. We used to talk about that guy worked really hard. It took them 20 years to get to A to B and make it work. These are the companies which became unicorn in less than 3 years. And one of them is an Indian company called Udaan, actually. They're a B2B marketplace for industrial goods, actually. Just in 3 years, they became a billion-dollar company because they raised money at that price. These are the unicorns. You can look at it, actually. Sometimes it's difficult to read this, actually. But essentially, you need to understand a couple of things, actually. As digital disruption comes your way, in whatever form, whether it goes to your parent company or it impacts you directly, it's important to understand whatever you do. It's not that you need to junk that and leave that, actually. Focus on dual transformation. Start adopting things, and we will have some real-life examples. I have Arvind and Guru immediately after that, and we'll talk about these things, actually. But start thinking about it, actually. Start thinking about efficiencies. Start thinking about newer way of doing business compared to what you traditionally are doing, actually. It's a mindset change, guys. Nobody's going to come and talk more than this, actually. It's a mindset change. You need to be ready for that, actually. The other thing is that technology, whether you like it or you don't like it, is going to play an important role in your personal and professional and your business life, actually. You can't say, I'm not interested, I'm not a technologist. You don't have to be. Run a business, important for you to understand that, how to adopt that technology and create efficiencies. Continue to relook at your business model and continue to innovate it, actually, or change it. Actually. because it's changing at a much different pace, actually. You know, earlier creating a brand and then selling it outside was a different task. Today, it's very easy, actually. Just tie up with Amazon, tie up with Flipkart, put it together, your brand is ready, actually. Never in life it happened, actually. In fact, if you go to Amazon, you can become a writer today, actually. They allow you to become a writer and publish your book, actually. Earlier, you'll write a book, then knock on 20 doors and say, can you publish my book? Nobody publishes. Say, look, let me just publish, print 50 copies and do that. No, it doesn't happen like that. And for all you know, you're become viral, actually, social media reach, actually, right? No, it doesn't, it sounds very easy, actually. There are millions of people trying to become successful, actually. But that easy and difficulty lies in what you have, actually. That's the content we are talking about, actually. And again, I just rattled down all the decacorn here, actually. I mean, some of them are like insane. If you look at Ant Financial, if you don't know what Ant Financial is, do you know what Alibaba is? Yeah, it's a B2B marketplace in China, actually. It's the financial arm of that. So all their financial transaction happens through Ant Financial, actually. It's a 4-year-old company. The last round they've raised at $150 billion, actually. It's higher than the turnover of Verizon. Verizon is $120 billion, actually. Just in case you want to know how world is changing, actually. Yeah, the majority of the transaction happens through Ant Financials, actually. So where does automation strike, actually? I'm sure you guys would have heard about artificial intelligence, actually, right? And if you haven't heard, you're using it because all your phone has built into that, actually. The haptic, the other things which you use, actually. It's very normal for that, actually. What's happening there? This is what is happening. Randomly, if you look at it, in the industry you look at it, financial services, high-tech and financial services. Remember I showed you that slide, actually? That happened because they wrote an algorithm, actually, which could do automatic, you know, all the number crunching which a PhD computer science engineer does, that could happen through. There's a company called Kensho, actually, which recently got acquired by SMP, actually. They do that. If an event happens, Kensho algorithm can actually predict how the share price, commodity price will going to get impacted based on that event, actually. Earlier you needed 10 people to do that. Energy and resources, transportation and logistics, automotive and assembly. Everything in automotive, what you see today is manual, has to become automatic. Because a car is no longer going to be a car. It's going to be a smart computer, which is going to do everything for you. The only part which is going to be mechanical is the driving part, actually. The only part. And very, very important. You know, earlier it used to take, 7 years for somebody to put a car together, model and all that, then you're able to launch it. A friend of mine who, they do the designing for majority of, you know, Chinese car and European car and all that, they say that with current assembly, with current EVs, actually, you can churn out a new model in 2.5 years, actually. Never in car industry somebody could think like that, actually. Never. It's that fast. And all it is technology what they're trying to use. If you see here, like data collection, data processing, predictable physical work, take it from me. You're not going to get any human beings for that, actually. Today, if you talk to your bank, and I know most of those banks because the startup who are helping them, and the startup globally which are working with it, you have no idea whether you're talking to a human being or you're talking to a chatbot, actually. And this creates a huge problem for some of the IT industries, actually, or an IT, ITS, and a BPO industry. Because if you see the recent layoff and all that, it's primarily because a lot of the work which human dependent can be automated, can be done directly, actually. And it's going to come to every industry, actually. Initially, it came to the easy work because, you know, it was data collection, picking up phone and all that, that can be done. It's coming to every industry, actually. This you surely can't read. I wanted to just talk to you about what a customer experience looks like, actually. And the reason I say that, Google started offering retail banking account. Because everything what you do in your bank is online. I can tell you they're going to do a better job than any bank, actually. Because their ability to give best customer experience is much better than anyone's ability, actually. Guess who validated this? This year, in the beginning of the year, in February, I was talking to one of the board members of a large bank in Toronto, Canada. So I said, where do you see, and he's also the CFO, I said, where do you see the future of banks? This is what he says, and I'm not going to name him and the bank, actually. Says the future of bank is because it's highly regulated and compliance, we will become the BPOs, and we will do all the transaction in a regulated manner, and Amazon's and Google's will become the bank of front end. And guess, when they collect all that data, you're not going to need any wealth advisory from anyone. The data will come, they'll say 20 other people like you has this kind of saving and all that. This is the pattern of spending, you should be spending like this, and this is what I would suggest you should do that. And guess, you're going to trust them more because there is no human being, there's no emotion, and you're going to say, this guy is going to get a 15% commission, I'm not buying from him. That logic on top of that screen looks very good, I'm going to buy from that, actually. That's what you are heading to, actually, in every facet of environment, actually. Now that you're awake, anxious, and looking at me says, wow, that guy just changed the entire direction of the flow, actually. Guru came, he just calmed us down. He said, look, just being and all that is okay. Being is not enough, actually. I think you need to keep an eye around whether your being is relevant or not, actually. Correct? And just keep looking at it, actually. A couple of things which I want you to have a look at it, actually. It's important that whatever you do, keep looking around periphery, actually. Because these are the things which will start nibbling and come to you and disrupt you, actually. Okay? So keep looking in and around your industry, whichever industry you are and you serve that, actually. Important to focus on changing customer behavior. Moment I said, how many have Google account, everyone raised hand, actually, because I began to realize everyone uses Google Pay to transfer the money. You don't use your own bank, actually. That never happened before. Who thought Google will ask you to use their platform to transfer the money, actually? Because I've done the transaction, actually. Keep thinking about that. Customer is changing, and their behaviors are changing, and it's changing at a rapid rate, actually. Okay? Whatever you did yesterday may not be relevant today, actually. Because forward-looking strategy is very different, actually, so focus on those things. And finally, embrace dual transformation. I'm not saying that whatever you just chunk out of the window, actually, and say, I'm not interested, I'm going to start all over. No. Continue to do that, but remember that in a new environment, it's continue to go down, a newer thing will come up, and you need to focus on that, actually. Finally, if you don't do anything, be prepared to pay the cost for that, actually. On that note, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.